During my sabbatical in Mexico, I was at times asked to explain Unitarian Universalism. And I developed this very short answer that seemed to be satisfying to many of the folks I talked to. I said that in Unitarian Universalism, we believe that every religion has something very important to teach us, and that no religion has the absolute truth, including our own. Of course, there is much more to Unitarian Universalism because ours is not just a borrowing from other religions. But the statement I just shared is at least one part of our faith tradition that resonates with others. This morning, I'm going to follow a practice that I've used in the past. I'm going to present a religion in its very best light. I'm going to lift up what I believe Taoism has to teach us. First of all, and just to be clear, Tao is pronounced as if it had an initial D consonant, even though it is spelled with a T. And Jing is pronounced Jing. Okay, that's not helpful, but C-H-I-N-G is pronounced Jing. And so it is the Tao Te Ching. It means roughly the Book of the Way. The Tao, or the Way, is that primordial source from which all things arise. It is the gateway, says the Tao, to all understanding. Virtually nothing is known about the legendary founder of Taoism, Lao Tzu. Most scholars believe he was perhaps an older contemporary of Confucius in the 6th century before the Common Era, while some believe he lived 100 or 200 years later. We just don't know. About a year ago, I began reading a new translation of the Tao Te Ching by Stephen Mitchell. It's not a literal translation, although I believe it is very close, and that's fine with me. I think of myself as a lazy scholar because I'm very happy for someone else to struggle with those ancient languages and to do their best to bring the essence of an ancient text to life. My interest is in applying the text messages to the everyday experiences of life, and I hope to do that this morning. I find Stephen Mitchell's rendering beautifully written, poetic, very readable, and insightful. I have listed it as a resource at the end of the order of service. The Tao Te Ching is also short, less than 5,000 words, divided into 81 chapters of no more than a page each, and could easily be part of a spiritual practice. By the way, here's my copy. Mitchell calls the Tao Te Ching a manual on the art of living. Unlike many other scriptures, it contains no history or reference to historical characters. A key concept in Taoism is Wei Wu Wei, which literally means doing, not doing. Unfortunately, this is thought by some to mean do nothing or passivity. But this is a serious misunderstanding of Taoism's key philosophical idea. Mitchell offers this analogy, which I just love. He says, a good athlete can enter a state of body awareness in which the right stroke or the right movement happens by itself, effortlessly, without any interference of the conscious will. There is nothing for the good athlete to do, mind you, because she is moving effortlessly in concert with the rhythms of nature. Contrast this, if you will, with the times when we try to force things to happen. I have told this story before, but I believe it is worth repeating. When I was growing up here in Atlanta, I took swimming lessons at the YMCA. I remember one class in particular when I was learning the breaststroke. The coach had shown the class how to move our arms and how to move our legs. And I was in the water with the coach watching. And with tight precision, I made sure I did the stroke exactly right. There was only one problem. Although I was facing forward in the water, I literally moved backwards. That's a true story. After some amusement, the coach figured out I needed to relax. And when I did, I graciously moved forward in the water. As the Tao Te Ching says, less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non-action. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. When Taoism says nothing is done, it means that the doer is simply acting in harmony with the Tao. The doer and the doing have gotten out of the way. As Mitchell says, the doer has vanished into the deed. The fuel has been completely transformed into the flame. It is important, especially for those of us in the West, to understand the metaphysical reality that the Tao Te Ching speaks to. Speaking of the Tao, it says, "It is hidden, but it is always present. I don't know who gave birth to it. It is older than God." God, in other words, is just another manifestation coming out of the underlying reality that pervades everything. Here is another idea that is difficult for Westerners. The Tao does not take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil. Mitchell states, "The teaching of the Tao Te Ching is unencumbered by any concept of sin. What we think of as evil is only an opaqueness, a state of self-absorption, so that, as with a dirty window, the light can't shine through." The Tao Te Ching offers insights both for individuals and for society. These insights are not to do nothing, but again, as I said, to act in harmony with the Tao. It offers practical guidance for individuals. It says, "Can you coax your mind from its wandering and keep to its original oneness? Can you let your body become as supple as a newborn child? Can you cleanse your inner vision until you see nothing but the light? Can you love people and lead them without imposing your will? Can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? Can you step back from your own mind and thus understand all things? Giving birth and nourishing, having without possessing, acting with no expectations, leading and not trying to control, this, says the Tao, is the supreme virtue." And it offers these warnings. Fill your bowl to the brim, and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife, and it will blunt. Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval, and you will be their prisoner. The Tao Te Ching also has a lot to say about leading and government. And it is thought that Lao Tzu may have been a minor government official, a keeper of archives. The Tao Te Ching says, "The more powerful a nation grows, the greater the need for humility." Boy, do we need to hear that wisdom. "A great nation," it writes, "is like a great man. When he makes a mistake, he realizes it. Having realized it, he admits it. Having admitted it, he corrects it. He considers those who point out his faults as his most benevolent teachers. He thinks of his enemy as the shadow that he himself casts." I was humbled by what the Tao Te Ching says about religion. When the people lose their sense of awe, it says, they turn to religion. When they no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. Here is the Tao about force and violence. Whoever relies on the Tao in governing men and women doesn't try to force issues, or defeat enemies by force of arms. For every force there is a counterforce. Violence, even well-intentioned, always rebounds upon itself. And so now let me turn to the second part of my sermon. Why did I choose this topic, the Tao Te Ching, for my sermon on Valentine's Day? And more pointedly, what's love got to do with it? What I believe I have discovered in the last 10 years is that forcing change is not a good practice. Whether it is in a personal relationship or in a congregation, trying to force change will not have the intended effect. This lesson has been slow in coming for me, and this is embarrassing to say. But for most of my marriage, there are certain things I have wanted to change about my wife, Carol. I see that some of you have been down that road too. On my best days, I have come to appreciate and value Carol just the way she is. She does not need to change one bit. Everything that I thought I wanted to change is now something that I come to cherish. Again, this is on my best days. Here, the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching is uncanny. Any attempt on my part to force change or even lovingly entice it has always created resistance and conflict. It is simply not in the nature of things for Carol to be any different than who she already is. And who am I to say what is right for her? All of this may sound like I have given up, that I am resigned to accept something that I wish were different. Nothing could be farther from the truth. What I have sought is to live in harmony with the world around me, and Carol is a big part of that. That means being more accepting and more appreciative of others. What I have found is that by focusing on my journey, my own spiritual well-being, by seeking greater harmony in all my relationships, that my marriage has changed. It has grown more harmonious, more loving, and it has grown more stronger with the years. I believe this is and can be true for any relationship we are in. It can be true for our work environment. It can be true in our relationship with our own health. And here is the kicker for me. I believe it can be true in our relationship with politics and politicians. It is about maintaining our own equilibrium, even in the midst of turmoil. And we know about political turmoil. The Tao Te Ching advises us to operate in harmony with the Tao, to operate in harmony with the current state of affairs, both good and bad. It bears repeating. This is not resignation. It is not throwing our hands up in the air or in despair. Our actions, rather, are like the athlete whose movements are so aligned with the natural rhythms of life that we are no longer upset by the actions of others, that we remain grounded, close to the earth, connected with the energy of life. 3 weeks ago, on January 24th, I said in my sermon that peace begins in the heart. I had no idea that I would relate that sermon to this one. 3 weeks ago, I told the story of what happened to me in Phoenix, Arizona in July 2010, where my allies in immigration reform were chanting slogans that were 180 degrees out of step with what I believed to be most important in life. For me, vilifying the local sheriff, Joe Arpaio, was not my reason for being in Arizona, which was to give my voice, by my presence, to what it might mean to welcome the emigrant. Finding myself in the middle of these vulgar chants by my allies in immigration reform, my options as I would traditionally have thought them to be were these. 1, to go along for the sake of the larger movement. 2, to try to force my allies to change what they were saying and doing. 3, to leave the area altogether. None of these were in alignment with why I was in Arizona. And so, to maintain my equilibrium, my own sense of balance, a colleague and I went to our knees in a spirit of meditation. I don't know that it made one iota of difference for my allies. I would like to believe that it did, but that was not my concern. I do know that going to my knees in a spirit of meditation was right for me. And by that I mean that it allowed me to maintain my own spiritual well-being. For perhaps the first time in my life, I felt that I was in spiritual alignment with something larger than myself, what I believe that Taoism would call the Tao. It is not that I actively sought to change others, and certainly not by force. I sought only to stay true to my values as best as I was able, to stay in harmony with what I believe to be the creative, loving, compassionate spirit in the universe that goes by many names, none of which can adequately describe its essence. Even as I wrote those words of how I wish to be in the world, I know of no better expression of those words than those of Gandhi when he said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." The Tao Te Ching, what's love got to do with it? Love does not mean changing others, and it does not even mean changing ourselves. It is, though, to walk a path as best we are able, that keeps us connected to the source of life and goodness, and to be that presence of life for others. That is what I believe love has to do with it. May it be so.